building a full-blown marketplace to compete with the Upworks and Fiverrs of the world, going after Amazon sellers to start. By year 3, year 2.5, we were going after marketing and the whole marketing industry, the coaches, the consultants, the agencies. And we ended up being acquired by one of our clients at the end of last year, which was kind of cool, which kind of led me on a, what do I do next type of adventure.
I love it. So I would love to know, so if people don't know the Hoth is an SEO company, which purchased outsource why can't I think of your other company?
Free Up. We'll sell them outsource school later. No,
right. Yeah. Free Up. Yeah, so I'm curious, have you been working with the Hoth? Like, are you guys, seeing as how you have a relationship there, are you doing organic stuff too for outsource school, and are you using them? And if not, why not?
Well, so first of all, we get all our VAs from Free Up still. We have a great relationship with the new owners. We talk to them, I don't know, once a quarter or so, probably more early on. They kind of update us on stuff that they're changing with Free Up, which most of the stuff we approve on. Obviously, we're not going to agree on every little thing, but they don't really have to do that. So that's been kind of cool. And yeah, I mean, they were supportive of outsource school. They promoted outsource school to their community. They actually asked our permission because they wanted to, again, running into the same thing of how do you run ads to a Free Up type business model. They needed some kind of infographic or info product to use for that. So they kind of ran by us running ads. And I mean, we want a win-win. What's good for them is good for us. We love the team there. We train the team there. And so, yeah, we have a great partnership with them and they own a lot of other businesses besides the Hoth as well. That's kind of their well-known one. But Mark Hargrove and David Martin, they own, I don't know, 5-10 different companies.
Love it. That's so cool. So what are some other things? I mean, for me, once again, I think this is going to be heavily focused on info products because I'm going to be selfish and pick your brain, Nathan, because that's what I want to learn about. So in terms of info products, like so you say, you're doing, I assume you're doing all the standard stuff like SEO, email, paid ads. Is there anything else? Like, are you doing any kind of growth hacking? What are you doing to get the word out? I know you do podcast appearances. I would love to hear kind of like the list of what you guys are doing to get the word out.
Yeah, so we kind of have this organic marketing blueprint that we're tweaking from the Free Up days, because the Free Up days was a lot of hustle, especially in that first year or two where we were working 14-hour days, and we don't want to go back to that. But it's the same overall blueprint. You've got podcasts, you've got partnerships, you've got affiliates. We've got a Facebook group of outsource school affiliates that I think there was like 250 of them or something like that. SEO and getting in blog articles and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm missing one of them. I don't know. There's one more that I'm not thinking of.
Influencers, maybe?
Yeah, influencers. So we were, that kind of goes with partnerships. They all kind of go together in some way. Like sometimes an influencer, sure, like you guys are, or like Danny that from this morning, like they have a podcast. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just promote you to their Facebook group. So you kind of come up with different ways to get in front of different communities. And when you can combine that with paid ads, I believe it can be incredibly powerful. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing less of, like we have a VA who handles our partnerships and our affiliates, and I don't really deal with that as much anymore. We have a VA that writes our blog articles, that does SEO outreach. We have a VA that does podcast outreach, obviously, and I have to show up for the podcast. But the same organic marketing blueprint that I firmly believe works in any business. You just have to be targeted. You can't be like, hey, I'm just going to go on every single podcast. Like when we started with Free Up, we went on every single Amazon podcast. That was the goal. And then once everyone knew us in the Amazon space, only then did we move on to the marketing space.
Yeah, I love that. And that comes down to, I know something that I have a big problem with, which is really focusing on, I had a coaching call with my coach today, and, he was talking about how, that there's bullets and cannonballs, right? And like that you're supposed to start with bullets. So in other words, that's kind of like testing on a bunch of different channels and then finding what works and then hitting that one thing really, really hard. Which it sounds like that's kind of what you guys are doing, which is really cool. And I think that, once again, I'm rereading the book. I think it's called The One Thing. Because once again, I have ADD, right? So it's like, I don't know if I've never been diagnosed with ADD, but we were on a Zoom call with these new accountants that we had with my wife and I was like resizing the window, and my wife was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you so, I was just like, I'm used to having a podcast and kind of like producing it, making sure the windows fit and, all this stuff. And she was making fun of me, but that's like a big issue with me. And I know Amy's kind of similar in that sense where
I'm
we're,
similar too.
yeah, where we have tons of ideas and it's really, really hard to focus on quote unquote the one thing. But if you really break it down to, even if we're talking Amazon, right? Like one product, like the 80/20 kind of thing, like really concentrating on one product or one brand or one form of marketing until you master that, until you get to the cannonball, then you can move on and shoot more bullets, so that I love that analogy because it really put it into perspective for me. Any other kind of tips that you can give people as an entrepreneur, Nathan? And as you said, like you have kind of that same problem. Like, how do you stay focused? Because that's a big issue with me, and I'm sure a lot of people listening.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I definitely have undiagnosed ADD. I remember the early years of working with my business partner, Connor, would be on a conference call or whatever, and he'd just be like, Nate, are you like paying attention? And my mind would just wander off. And I think I've gotten a little bit better at it over the years. But I mean, for up and now, like the 10 years or whatever that I've been an entrepreneur, like it was all Amazon, it was all free up. I invested in stocks kind of behind the scenes since I was 20, but for the most part, I'm focused on those businesses. And now I'm kind of at a point where I'm trying to not just be focused on one business. I have Outsource School. I've got Simply SOP, which is a software that we kind of used Outsource School to get users in there. And now we're going to be promoting that separately. We're looking to invest in one company a quarter going forward over the next year. So that takes up time. Going more into stocks. And also now I have some real estate stuff going on as well. So kind of changing my mentality, which was like, hey, wake up every day, work 10 hours on growing free up to, hey, how do you divide your time and maximize it and make sure you're getting the most out of it? And it's almost like another level of trusting people, even more than we did at Free Up, which I think we did a decent job. Like we rented out our old place when we moved to Denver, and I have a property manager that's like handling that. And anytime that I'm spending like calling plumbers, like that's not a good use of my time. So, but I have to really trust him. And very similar to other stuff on Simply SOP, we have an awesome team there. And going into investing companies, dividing up between Connor and I. So I think hopefully it's the next level of entrepreneur that I can level up on.
Oh, see, I didn't know you were in Colorado now. So you're on Mountain Time too. So we're Mountain Time partners now. I love it. And
Yeah.
Also, now that I know that you're delving out money, I'm gonna have to pitch you on some of the stuff I'm working on.
Let's do it.
So, on that token, Amy and I have talked about this before, and there's always an interesting, there's always like a huge list of tools, and I always have to go through like I kind of do it like every quarter, and cut out tools, figure out tools what that work for my use case. Things like that. Are there any tools that you consider essential that you guys are using that really help you stay organized and get things done, like Airtable or I forget the other one, Cataban, where you can like slide things back and forth? Like what are you using in terms of like productivity, marketing, keeping things on track? I would love to know that.
So it's so funny. For Free Up ran on Skype. Like for 4 years, I think I Skyped you guys there. Like we connect clients and freelancers. We had freelancer groups. The second the Hoff bought Free Up, the first thing they did was take everyone off Skype, put them on Slack. And we saw that and we're like, all right, like I think we'll check out Slack. I don't know how we did Skype for 4 years. Like there's no going back. Slack is immensely better than Skype ever was. And I'm kind of bummed out that Salesforce bought them because I'm hoping that they don't change anything that makes it worse. So Slack is essential. We're on Slack every single day. That's how we communicate with our virtual teams. The stuff that we teach at Outsource School, unless it's like a voice role for like customer service or sales, everything's on Slack. Our interviews are on Slack, the onboarding on Slack, all of our meetings are on Slack. And we even have a Slack playbook that you can get at Outsource School. So Slack's essential. We use Trello and we use Trello in a bunch of different ways. So Connor and I use it for our own projects to divide up short and long-term projects. And we use it with all of our creatives. So like our graphic design playbook, our video editing playbook, we kind of break through how, hey, when we have a graphic design project, the first thing it does is it gets thrown in Trello. Same thing with video editors. And there's a process it goes in so that I always know when there's something that I need to review or something's waiting on an editor, or it could be that the video editor is waiting on the graphic designer. And so it's all very organized in there. Our developers use Jira. I don't know why. That Connor kind of handles the dev side, but for whatever reason, they like that tool.
I hate it. I hate it. We had people trying to use it, and I've done a lot of development in my life, and I absolutely hate it. It's like not intuitive at all. I don't know how And I've heard that from tons of people, and I don't get it. Sorry to
The
interrupt, but yeah.
issue, the issue that I have with Trello is I like Trello and the different templates and the way that it's organized, but the issue that I have with it is that it's another thing that I have to go to, right? It's not integrated with the rest of my tools. And so I use a lot of Google's tools for productivity and task management because they're right there where everything else is. They're fully integrated. Where Trello is like, okay, I have to go to Trello and then, see what's going on and then leave it to go to all of these other apps. And what I love about Slack is it's fully integrated with Zoom and your emails, and we have Zapier sending, orders, everything like that. And we can do the different channels. And so I love Slack for centralized management, but that was the thing with Trello that I couldn't overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think my Trello organization is somewhat chaotic, but it works for me. I'm very good at like prioritizing the next thing. So I kind of have these long lists of all these things I want to do. And if I'm randomly like thinking on a walk, I'll like write it down. And then the first thing I do every morning is like reorganize and just like chip away, which works for me, but probably won't work for everyone. The other tool that we use is our own tool, and we really do use it, Simply SOP. When we sold FreeUp and they needed all our standard operating procedures, we just turned over like hundreds of pages of Google Docs. And it was just very chaotic, very unorganized. Like it was as organized as it could be because we're decently organized people, but we kept looking for a better solution. So we built the software for standard operating procedures of virtual teams. We use it ourselves. Our outsource school members use it, and we'll be promoting that as well. Those are the main tools that we use, unless I'm not thinking of another one.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is one of the huge places where where there's still a lot of room for growth is SOPs and it's like people
Operations
when
management,
just in
really.
general, I mean, like even if you look at
Yeah.
the Amazon space, right? Like there's nobody who has like, hey, buy a package on how to manage your PPC, right? I mean, there's instructions on how to learn it, but there's not like something that you can hand to a VA that says like step one, do this, step two, do that. Not only that, but it's always evolving, right? So if you build something in a Google Doc, 2 weeks from now, Amazon's going to say, oh, here's offsite video ads, this new thing and now all that work that you just did is now outdated and they've changed the UI and all this kind of stuff. So I think there's huge opportunity there, which Nathan, I think that you're kind of, it's not necessarily Amazon focused, but I definitely think you're in the right, going in the right direction in terms of having some SOP stuff, which is fantastic. Any other kind of passions? I know you're doing outsource school, you're doing the SOP stuff, like anything else we're talking about, like real estate, crypto, like what other things are you really into right now?
Yeah, so 2020, I've read probably more books than I have, I don't know, in the past 3 years or so since probably Free Up started. So I've been reading a lot about just different marketing stuff. Like I find webinars fascinating. I've been reading Jason F's book on webinars. I think that's right over there. Yeah, just kind of diving down. Tools of Titans is up there. Read that this year. Just a lot of stuff in there, and kind of going over different industries. Like I read a lot about angel investing. I read a lot about real estate, kind of jumping into different categories to see what I'm interested in and what I'm not. I'm also just a big like workout guy. It's weird. I used to hate working out from home, and now I don't even know like how I went to the gym anymore. I kind of definitely overpaid for weights on OfferUp because weights just cost way too much right now. But I was able to, now that I have a house, I built a gym downstairs. I get to spend like an hour there every day. I'm probably in better shape than I was 2 years ago. So that's another one of my passions. I mean, outside of that, you've got like the travel and the concerts and the stuff like that, but you're not really doing a lot of that in 2020. So I'm kind of just making do with what I can.
Yeah, I love
So
it. Yeah.
in terms of, you're into all these things right now, you said that you really have leveled up as an entrepreneur. You've been able to take it to where you were really focused on one business, and you really grew that one business, and you learned how to build a team and make that business sellable, handoffable, right? And then you've taken those concepts and that framework and you've applied it. You've looked at the opportunities out there that other people need help with, the same way FreeUp was born, right? Because people needed help with VAs, and you already had VAs that were trained and that were trusted. And, that's a big thing in the service-based community. But what would you say is the turning point? I would say first, let's leverage your experience of hiring a team, whether it's a VA or somebody local, right? But what would you say is the turning point for when people really need to think about, when they really need to do some reflection and go, hey, I know it's an e-commerce business, 4-hour work week, but I'm never going to grow if I don't hire, right? What would you say is the turning point for that? And then my second part of this question is, what would you say is the turning point for when you're ready to focus on more than one business and really start kind of putting your attention in different areas?
So to answer the first question, for whatever reason, I start businesses with $5,000. I don't know why that's a number. It makes sense in my head because I start very like lean businesses that I'm not like buying an office to start the business. And $5,000 is a lot of VA work that you kind of can burn through before you have to start making money. And it gives you a little bit of a cushion. I actually talked to someone who we might end up investing in his company. He said he heard me say that on a podcast. He started his company with $5,000 and he's crushing it. So for me, it's like, hey, listen, if you have no money or you're going to really struggle if you go into like a little bit of debt, like, yeah, you should be hustling and doing every little thing yourself to get that initial money. But at some point you have to understand that not everything you do as an entrepreneur is going to work out. Like we talked about that organic marketing playbook of FreeUp, like going on podcasts, partnerships, blog articles. Like there was a bunch of other stuff that we did that just didn't work out. But the key is we had virtual assistants getting all these different things off the ground. And when things didn't work, we were like, okay, that's a loss. We lost a few $100. Let's pull back. And when things started to work, we invested more and more time into it. So for me, it's kind of understanding that, hey, being an entrepreneur is just kind of coming up with a lot of different ideas and maybe reading about other people's ideas and trying to tweak what other people are doing. But by having a team, it allows you to experiment and burn through those ideas a lot faster. Instead of taking 6 months, you might be able to go through all these ideas in a few weeks or a month or whatever it is. And I think that's something that we've kind of learned where with Outsource School, we were able to kind of hit the ground running, even with our first product. We're like, hey, how do we just get this first product out there, try to sell it? If it fails, like, oh, well, we refund everyone, we move on to something else, like we'll be okay. And if it takes off, then we'll start figuring out what works on info products, because I promise you, it's not the same thing that exactly works on FreeUp. So I think that's kind of the best way I can answer it. I kind of always hated the questions like, when's the right time to hire a VA, or like, who should I hire first? Because that's just different for every business. But it just comes down to how much time do you really have in a day? How much money do you actually have to play with? And what can you do to kind of burn through that trial and error to figure out what works? I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that really does. And I love the idea of, first of all, looking at starting your business with $5,000. I love that benchmark. And I love your thought process around it is there is a lot of ideas that are going to come into play. And the more of a team that you have to help you burn through them, the faster you can move forward and stop doing what doesn't work. Versus, we all hate, like when we're sourcing from China, for example, and especially right now when we can't source in person and we're having to like send samples back and forth, and it takes like months to come up with a new product. And, it's so frustrating if you don't have people there on the ground, or you don't have other people to work those hours that, you can contact your suppliers and stuff like that. And just having a team to work on each of those aspects, you could really cut your timeline down, right? So I think if people think of it that way and budget their money that way, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to burn through my $5,000 and then not be able to make that money. So I love that mindset. I think it's a struggle too, when you start getting, especially into the Amazon community, doors start opening. It was like the minute I left my job and went full time into business, so I met so many people that I wanted to do cool things with, and so many opportunities presented themselves. And I don't regret any one of the opportunities that I said yes to, but I definitely chased a lot of squirrels and lost some money in the process, because I think Andy mentioned it earlier, like in the beginning, when you first start in e-commerce, you think, oh, I'm going to start 20 different brands and I'm going to do all these different things, but you need to focus on one brand and variations of one product that's working. And, to be able to turn that money over, because foundations cost money. foundations. Every new business that costs $5,000 and then doesn't work out, you're spreading yourself really thin. So I think there is a fine balance in really looking at what is just potentially a squirrel and what is really in line with your personal vision and your personal goals and your own passions. Would you say that, Nathan?
Yeah. And to add a little bit more to that, I mean, part of being an entrepreneur is knowing when to say no and knowing when to quit. And just because you quit on one particular thing doesn't mean you're quitting as an entrepreneur as a whole. But I remember the situation where I spoke at a conference and somehow I ended up talking to this guy who he was selling dresses online and he was like hemorrhaging money. I was a young entrepreneur, so it wasn't really my place to like tell him, hey, like this is a stupid idea. But I remember that this other entrepreneur that I respect went up to him and he essentially said, like, how much money do you have to lose before then you do that, you consider like that it's not going to work out? And the guy didn't really have an answer. And kind of my message in my mind is like, there's got to be some limit. And even without thinking in that way, I've kind of done that. Like before, I talk about books to baby products, but there's a lot of stuff in between there that I try to and spend a few $100s on computers and CDs and all different things that didn't work out. But I didn't spend 6 months on each one of them. I realized, hey, I'm not making any money here. I quit. I moved on to the next thing. There was a hookah company that I thought was really cool in between my Amazon business and FreeUp. And I spent about 30 days testing out the market there. And I was like, hey, no one wants tobacco-free hookah. So I got out of that and I focused on FreeUp. So, but you wouldn't have known that unless you try. Maybe that was the next big market that turns into Bitcoin. But I think knowing when to kind of quit and be like, hey, I can't spend any more money here, any more time here, becomes incredibly essential. And bringing it now to like when we invest in companies, we have an application, people go through it. Like we don't want to hop on 5 phone calls and then be like, hey, it's not a fit. Like we want to establish that early on, similar to interviewing someone for a VA role or figuring out an issue after the hire. Like the earlier you catch that stuff, the more time it allows you for other things that'll actually be worth your time and money.
And I would say too, you have to be careful about the get rich quick kind of thing too, because a lot of people don't spend enough time in something, right? So like some people try to get into drop shipping, and there are a lot of people that are really successful at drop shipping, but that's because they took the time to see it through and tune their audience and get their traffic going. And but there's a lot of people that see their success, 10 chapters down the road of Facebook ad tweaking, and they go, oh, I want that. And then they try it and they go, I didn't get any orders. I tried a product, I didn't get any orders. And then, so I think there's a lot of times when people kind of want the get rich quick thing and they just jump from one thing to another. So it's like, there's a balance, right? There's a balance in spending enough time with something and putting enough backing behind it where you give it a fighting chance. But then there's also a time to say, enough is enough. Like this isn't working and time to move on. Right.
And there's signs too, like with the hookah thing, I talked to a lot of people and every single person said, hey, I'm not interested. With Outsource School, when we launched on Corona week, when the US got hit with coronavirus, which was like the worst timing in the world, and we had like a bad first day, even though we ended up strong, we at least talked to people and people said, hey, I'm interested. I want this. Like the world's crazy right now. So there's at least signs. And I think if you actually talk to the customers and you do the research, you'll be able to see, hey, like there's nothing here. I can spend another 2 months. There's still going to be nothing here. Or, hey, there's signs. I just have to tweak my messaging, tweak my page, tweak my marketing, whatever tweaks you have to make in your business to make it happen.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So Nathan, I got another quick question for you. One of the things that I've realized is, once again, I'm similar to you in that, always reading new books, always, moving on to the quote unquote next thing to like get myself to where I need to be. But what I realized is, once you have a product, once you have something, there's only so much more you can do until you really dial in on sales, right? So sales is one of the most important things on the planet in terms of, getting the word out. If you spend a little bit of time or you spend a lot of time launching a product, getting, great packaging, doing all this stuff, and then you put it out there for a month and you hear crickets, a lot of people give up there. They just go, oh, it's not working, I'm out. So I would love to kind of hear your feedback on, the sales cycle, and maybe like how do you determine, you know, what's working, what's not working? And do you have any process in terms of, maybe a checklist, maybe like, how do you go about, you said you're doing podcasts, you're doing all these things. How do you measure that? How do you decide what to work on next in terms of sales and marketing?
Yeah, I 100% agree. There was actually a point, and I don't want to bash the Orlando or like the entrepreneurial community in Orlando, but I just got so frustrated because I would go to these meetups and everyone was like seeking funding. Like they just couldn't move in their business until they took funding. And in my mind, I'm like, no, like go get sales, like go prove that you can actually sell your products. And if you do that, then the funding comes. To me, like the whole thing just was backwards and got me pretty frustrated. But I 100% agree. Like you have to start selling your product. Like same thing with Outsource School. Like we didn't work 10 months, launch it, and then try to sell it. We minimum viable product, got it out there with free out, minimum viable product, got it out there. And to me, like we've never lived in a time that it's cheaper to start a business. We mentioned you could start a business with $5,000. So there, unless you're coming up with like the next Uber, which most people that try to come up with the next Uber fail and hemorrhage a lot of other people's money, you have to start getting sales early on. And my thing, and this is why every time someone's like, hey, why are you talking on the phone with people with free up, or earlier with Outsource School when I was still doing phone calls, now we have a VA team that does phone calls. To me, figuring out your message and your pitch is incredibly important. And I like to hear when I'm talking to someone on the phone, like where I lose them. Because there's always a point that you're talking to someone and you're kind of explaining your product, explaining the benefits, explaining the pain points, and you just realize that that just didn't resonate with them. Or you get kind of responses like, hey, I'll talk to my business partner, or hey, like that's not really what I'm looking for. But then the next phone call, you tweak it, you try something else, and eventually you get to the point. And I feel like with free up, we got to the point where people were asking me to like show up on masterminds to give the free up pitch because we had perfected it. But I didn't just wake up one day and come up with that pitch. That was like hundreds of phone calls, fine tuning every single word to make sure that it was resonating with people. And that's a lot of times what you have to do as an entrepreneur to kind of get there. And I don't think we're there with Outsource School yet, although I think we're a lot closer than we were in March. So once you can figure that out and kind of dial in the sales cycle, everything else becomes easier. And if you think of it as a funnel, all those organic marketing tactics we talked about are really just to spread awareness, to get them on your site, to get them to check you out in some way. And then you have to figure out, hey, are you doing the upsells that Russell teaches? For us, it's always been get them to hop on a phone call. Same thing with free up, with Outsource School. Like if you go to outsourceschool.com, everything points you to scheduling a call with my rockstar VA who impresses people on the phone, which is a big win for us. But even if you sign up for our other lead magnets, everything kind of points to the phone call and then to sale. But there's a certain element of tweaking, just like you tweak that pitch to figure out what works for your business.
Absolutely love that. And I love to, for the people, who a lot of our listeners who are like Amazon focused. I mean, Amy and I did the Sourcing Small Masterclass, right? And what that was is like, hey, buy like 3 products on AliExpress. You don't need special packaging. You don't need a brand. You don't need anything, but you get something out there and learn the process on how to do Amazon, right? Like I remember when I first started, I did all merchant fulfilled because I was like, what's FBA? That sounds weird and scary. And how do I do that? And once you figure it out, it's super simple. But it's all these things that you tell yourself that you need to do that are really not important until you actually get some stuff moving, get some products, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, like we were saying, like, it does not need to be branded. And well, what if I get hijacked? I go, well, you just ordered 10, right? Start a new listing. You've already proved the concept. Start a new listing with your brand, have it branded, start over. And you've already learned how to launch now because that first product that you sold 10 of, all you do is just redo that process, right? But just put more effort behind it. So I absolutely love that. And I think that, myself included, I always like to tell people who listen to this podcast, I get to make all the mistakes so that I can tell you guys, how not to make those mistakes. So I stumbled into that process early on in my Amazon career. I was just like trying to source like one product a week, which that, in retrospect was crazy. But, even if you guys source one product a month, which I think is actually a smarter thing to do, especially nowadays, and you do your research and you really, put your focus on that, that's how you guys should really be looking at things. And, and planning those things out, but also testing the process first, learning how to do it successfully, and then repeating it.
And the other thing that Nathan said is perfecting your pitch. That goes with anything that you're selling, because everything relies on the two questions, right? The one question that customer is going to ask when they hit your website or your Amazon listing, whether you're selling a service product, an info product, or a physical product, consumer product, is this for me? And if you don't have the answer to that question for them, for the right customer for you, right? Like Nathan said, that wasn't my first pitch. Like I learned over time how to pitch that. And I think of my invented product. When I first put it out there, I did such a bad job communicating what it was. And I thought that it was awesome, right? Like I thought I was doing a great job communicating it. And I was getting returns and people were like, it's not a litter box. And I'm like, yeah, it's not a litter box. Like I'm clearly not doing that right? But it takes time. So like Andy said, don't give up at, a 1 month of, oh, I didn't have any sales. It didn't work out, right? Look back at it and go, why would someone buy from me? Why would they trust me? Because that second element is trust, right? Especially free up, you guys had trusted VAs. How many of us, and same thing with Outsource School, they're teaching you how to hire someone who you can trust. And the biggest element when you're hiring a team is trust. When you're hiring anyone to take something off of your plate of this big, scary entrepreneurship journey is trust. And that's the biggest thing to learn, and why to perfect your pitch over time, perfect your advertising, perfect your brand messaging. All of that is because of trust. And so that's just a huge thing. And so don't, like Nathan said, don't give up, keep perfecting your pitch. Like Andy said, start small, minimum viable product, right? I love that. That's awesome. But don't give up at month 1, but also know when to quit. Yeah, I love that you've taken what's worked for you, Nathan. And the other big thing that you do that I have such mad respect for is every time that you launch something new, you go out to your network and you ask them what they need and how you can make your offer better. You so many times have said, hey guys, we're doing this with Outsource School. How could we make it better? How could we make it more appealing? And, I've made comments on those things and you've implemented some of those things. And it's just like, it's cool because then it's building on that trust. And just like you were talking about, talking to customers and seeing what they want, I have to commend you for that because not everyone does that well. And you're just super humble and you're like, how can I make this better?
I remember having conversations earlier with you this year that you're just super confused about Outsource School, which is like the best feedback because it's like, all right, if she's confused, and I know how many info products you've just seen across Facebook or whatever in your lifetime, like clearly the average person is confused. And there's a certain element of it, like when we started Free Up, we kind of started off as an agency and then we switched to a marketplace, and it took us like 6 months to get everyone out of the mentality that we were an agency. And very similar to Outsource School, like when we started Outsource School, we launched with a course, and now we're kind of backpedaling. We're like, no, Outsource School is not a course or a membership. And we've kind of tweaked some stuff there. And part of that's with kind of reading the market and understanding what kind of business you want to run as well. And that doesn't end. I mean, back in the day when you could go to conferences, I would always ask people like what they thought of Free Up and trying to get feedback there. Same thing with Outsource School. I mean, feedback can only help you. The key is making sure you're listening to the right people. Like when I tell my mom what I'm doing with Outsource School, she's going to tell me, hey, it's great or whatever, but that doesn't mean anything. It's talking to actual people that would buy that product, come across similar products, are familiar with that space, and actually listening to them. And it doesn't mean you need to implement every little thing instantly, but it's good to have that information.
Yeah, I love that. So have you perfected your 30-second pitch for Outsource School yet? Can we test it out? Let's test it out. Tell us what Outsource School is.
So if you join Outsource School, you're going to get our unique hiring process that allows you to hire rock stars quickly whenever you need to. You're going to get access to trainings on how to set up different roles inside your team, like customer service, sales, lead generation, podcast outreach, stuff like that. Support, community, and coaching to help you along the way, along with access to our software, Simply SOP, to make creating SOPs easier and reoccurring there. So if you join Outsource School, you can join for $97 a month or $9.97 per year, and we come out with new trainings every single month.
I love it. And the other great thing about groups like that is accountability, right, Nathan? That's like one of the main things that that goes with one of my, with the mastermind coaching group that I'm with for software is, there's a bunch of us in there, and it's like, well, what have you done for the last few months? Like, get off your ass and get, get something done, do something. So I love that, with that type of setup, you also get accountability. The other thing that's really cool that I think that some people have talked about before, I don't know if you've ever done this, Nathan, is in terms of verifying your product or getting feedback from your product. You'll get hit or miss, but Amazon Mechanical Turk, like it's a little bit complex, but it's really not that hard. But going in there and just it can be for your Amazon product, it can be for your software, it can be for whatever it is. It can even be like I've done this before, like, hey, check out my website. When you go to my website, what services do you think I offer? And the answers you get are extremely surprising. So do you do any type of that, or is it all one-on-one, like personal stuff, in terms of getting verification of product and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we do split testing and stuff. A lot of times I'm more on the ad side. And I think that we could probably do a better job on the website thing. The thing is, Connor's just really good at building websites. I'm kind of lucky to have him. So I leave that kind of stuff up to him, and he's constantly getting feedback there. And he probably does a lot of split testing stuff that I don't even know about. So that's a little out of what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. I'm a little bit more on the marketing side and creative side and getting out there and talking to actual people.
Yeah, you're the face of the company. He's like me, the introverts. Yeah, that's my problem. I need the face of the company. I need. I wish my wife was into software. See, she wishes I was in real estate, and I wish, because she's like, oh, if you came over to real estate, you could build you could build software, you could do all my marketing. And I'm just like, meh. And then I'm like, oh, you could come into the software, and Amazon thinks you could do this for me and that. And then she's like, meh.
So let's talk about that. Like, that is a really great question that I get asked all the time from clients, and that Nathan probably has a really good finger on his pulse of, is as far as what makes a good partner. Like, what should people look for in a partner? You've obviously been with Connor for a long time. Your skills kind of complement each other. So what advice do you have for people on if they need a partner, finding the right partner?
So equity in your company is everything. I think a lot of people are way too quick to give up equity in their company. I mean, with Connor was one of my first employees. I hired him in college. He was one of the only college kids that was reliable and actually good at their job. But I built up a lot of trust with him before I actually made him a part owner in Amazon, and kind of increased his ownership, going from free up to outsource school, to where we're 50-50, 50-50 owners in outsource school. So I mean, that trust develops over time, and you won't actually know whether you can work with someone until you go through some adversity. It's very easy to be business partners with someone when you're making tons and tons of money. It's when everything goes wrong that you understand when you can actually work with someone. And we went through some devastating times. I have a Myrtle Beach story where we kind of lost everything. You guys might have heard it. We had one supplier, one manager, and both of them quit and dropped us on a vacation that we took, and we had to start the whole Amazon business from scratch in like year 1.5, and other stuff across the way, having to fire people and make bad hires that cost us a lot of money. So we've been through the ups and the downs. We've kind of been numb to that. And we have very, very different skill sets. I mean, you won't see Connor posting in the ClickFunnels group, but he's a very good marketer. He's good at what he does on the SEO side, good at what he does on the website side, does a lot of things behind the scenes, makes me look really good. I probably get more credit than I deserve there. But we have the exact same values. Like, we believe in treating people well. We believe in owning up to our mistakes, because neither of us are perfect, and you want someone that can take responsibility. We believe in like very, very lean finances, both on a business side, but also a personal side. Like, Connor's not out there buying Lamborghinis. I'm not out there buying Lamborghinis. We invest in the stock market. We're just very similar minded across the board when it comes to our values and how we talk to people in general. Whether someone's never made $1 before being an entrepreneur, or they're an 8-figure entrepreneur, we try to treat people the same way. So same values, different skill sets, and some way to build trust with them before you just go all in and give them everything and can't back out.
I think that's like, with great advice. Andy and I have been in business together for a little while, and we started on our friendship and doing things together. And I think Andy and I's biggest issue is that we both have the same weaknesses. We both like to chase squirrels. We both like to we both are idea fairies, and so, we're both kind of introverted in certain ways. And so it's like, it's hard when you have a partner that is, it's really good to have the same values, because we have really similar values, and which is so good. But it's hard if you both have the same weaknesses. It's good to have like strengths that complement each other's weaknesses. But yeah, great advice on that. What do you think, Andy, as far as partners?
Yeah, absolutely. And partnerships are hard. They're just like marriages, it, but the other thing that I think that you really need to look at, and this was once again, from my coaching call earlier today, which was great timing. I gleaned a lot from it. Is my coach asked the question of like, are you getting a partner because you're not, what you're working on isn't performing, and you think that partner is going to like bring some like magic fairy dust to what you're doing, or is it that you're just not getting it done? And I think that a lot of people think like having a partner is this like magic bullet, right? But what you have to think about is like step back from that and look at, for me, once again, like I said, to me, the introspection after my coaching call today was that I'm sucking at sales. Like I should be on every day talking about my product, what we're doing, what's coming up. And I don't do that. And, there's lots of excuses. I have children, I'm not getting enough sleep and things like that, but you have to push through those things, right? You have to like say, you know what, I'm going to go live today. And if my kids come into the background, maybe it'll go viral. Maybe, it'll be like one of that CNN video where that mom drags the kid out, which if you guys haven't seen that, talked about it before, it's hilarious. But you have to just get out of your own way in terms of like really thinking about, what is this partner going to bring to the table? And is it something that, that you're just thinking that you're lacking, or is it, something that's essential? So that's the only advice that I will give for my experience thus far in terms of partnerships.
Or something that you maybe need to hire, right? That you have to have the vision for, and be able to give the guidance for. But you can hire sales. You can hire really great people who that's their energizer bunny. I always say you have time and energy. And energy is a greater asset than time, because if I do things that bring me energy, I'm never going to run out of time. I'm going to be able to keep going because I'm doing things that bring me energy. And, when you think about like sales, if it's not your strong suit, your product, your pitch. Yes, as the owner and founder of a company, it's your job to make sales, but it doesn't mean that you can't give that guidance to someone else who loves making sales. Would you say that, Nathan? That you don't necessarily need a partner for it, and you don't necessarily need to hone the skill yourself. You can always hire for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big decision. It's like, do I need a partner? Can I hire for it? And certain things you can or can't. And you had something that I thought was really good, is like, do you actually enjoy doing it? And that's a question that Connor and I ask each other all the time. I remember asking each other at the end of every Amazon busy season, which was super crazy, and we were burnt out and we were pulling all-nighters. Like, hey, do you still enjoy this? Like even the last week, Connor's actually on his way over to my house right now. If he comes over, maybe I'll have him bop in. But like when we were walking, went for a walk and we were just talking business, and it kind of reverts back to, hey, you still enjoying what you're doing? You're still enjoying like what you're rolling to outsource school? And if that answer is ever no, like something's got to change. Like you can only work on a business so long if you're not actually enjoying what you're doing every day.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think that so many people, once again, will get into Amazon because they've heard it's, you can make all this quick money, and, they hate their 9-to-5 job. But when it comes down to it, they're really not passionate about it. And, like I said, for myself, that's one of the things that I'm starting to realize is, I'm not being, I've not been super passionate about my Amazon business lately. It's kind of like the thing I have to do, And so, I've kind of stepped back from that in terms of, next year I'm going really, really hard into software. And, it's a big leap because it's going to be the same kind of thing of when I quit my day job to go to Amazon, right? It's kind of the same type of move where I'm not sure if I'm going to sell my Amazon business or, what's going to happen there. But, that self-realization that like, am I just doing this because it's, what I have to do? Or is it, am I doing this as what I really want to do? So, once again, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody, but that's great. Those are all great questions to ask yourself.
You should love
Yeah,
what
we
you
did
do.
that back with our Amazon business. Like we were 7 years in, we had a lot of fun, we learned a lot, but it got to the point where we honestly just hated it. Like every time that we were not working on Free Up and we were working on the Amazon business, it felt like we were going to work for like a corporate job. And we kept telling each other that. And one day we were just like, all right, like, doesn't matter how much money we're making. We got to shut that down. Can't sell it. Let's focus on Free Up. And it ended up being the right decision.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. And once again, like I said, people, I'm not trying to dissuade you from selling on Amazon. I know lately it sounds like I am, uh, but Amazon's a rough game. A lot of the gurus and things that are trying to like sell you things will, tell you how easy it is and things like that. And there are definitely people who are and continue to be successful on Amazon. They love it. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from that. And you can totally get into it and make lots of money. I mean, still to this day, I tell people as a side gig too, like, if you're working a 9 to 5 right now, as a side gig, you want to make a little bit of extra money. I still think Amazon is probably one of the best side gigs that you can do. It's one of the best main gigs you can do, if you really enjoy it. But there are, these new and continued roadblocks that pop up, but that's always going to happen in no matter, any business that you're doing. So, on that note, Nathan, oh, go. No, please.
I was just going to add in, I was
thought.
selling baby products on Amazon as like a 20 to 26-year-old, like single guy. So like I wasn't really passionate about what I was doing. And I think if I was passionate about the products I was selling, it would have been a way different conversation.
Yeah, and that's a huge tip. And Amy, that's one of the first things that Amy and I, when we talk to people getting onto Amazon, they're always like, "Oh, I really, I've seen this product opportunity here or whatever like that." And I always tell people, start out with either your passion or your hobbies, because if you already have a great knowledge base on those things, number one, you're going to enjoy it because it's already something you're into. But number two, people will see that you're an expert already, or at least have a big base of knowledge in whatever you're selling. So I think that's absolutely great advice. Now, Nathan, we've come to the part where you said you've done a lot of reading and you've been doing a lot. I would love to hear kind of, any books, podcasts, things that you're listening to or learning from right now that you can share with our audience.
Yeah, good question. Right now, I'm heavily into the stock market. I am reading Peter Lynch's book. This is actually the second Peter Lynch book I'm on. Really cool stuff on value investing, kind of what we were talking about, like just like you invest in products, invest in companies, in the stock market, which like back in the day, I invested in Amazon, I invested in Apple, I invested in Dunkin' Donuts, like stuff I knew. You get into trouble when you invest in healthcare companies that have nothing to do with what your knowledge base is. So that's kind of what I'm into right now. A lot of Warren Buffett work. I've kind of gone through these cycles. Like I did a lot of real estate. I did a lot of webinar stuff. I was on stocks. I think I'm missing one or two of them. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Awesome. So we mentioned Outsource School, quite a bit through this episode, but if anybody wants to check it out, which we've interviewed a lot of people in terms of like staffing, outsourcing, things like that, and I can easily say that Nathan is one of the foremost experts in that field. So Nathan, where can people find what you guys are doing right now?
Yeah, go to outsourceschool.com. You can check out a free trial. You can book a call with one of my rockstar VAs, which if you've never talked to a VA that speaks perfect English, that can handle high-level phone calls, it's a really cool experience. You can check that out. You can also check out our software, Simply SOP. And if anyone's interested in a potential partnership, investment, stuff like that, feel free to reach out to me on any social media channel, Nathan Hirsch.
Awesome, Nathan. Thank you so much. As usual, always super fun to talk to you. I'm glad we didn't go with the script today. We shot from the hip. I feel like those are some of the best episodes. Amy, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I agree. This was a great episode, and it was really fun hearing from Nathan in the new chapter of his life here, all the new stuff he's doing, and some great advice for those of us entrepreneurs who are also going through some, changes and growing through our businesses, especially after this year in 2020, right?
Yeah. Well, what a year. Well, we got like 10 days left. Hope you guys stay safe and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, guys. As usual, if you haven't rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, please do that. We really appreciate that, guys. That's what really drives us is when we hear the coolest thing. Honestly, I know Amy feels the same way. Is when we get emails or comments from you guys, on how we've helped you. That's awesome. I really really appreciate that when you guys reach out and let us know on that. Also, please let us know what you want us to cover. As you guys know, we're not only into e-commerce, Amy and I are also into, real estate and software and all kinds of other different, interests. And we love to at least I love to kind of veer away from, the core of e-commerce, even though that's still, when you look at it, e-commerce is at the core of everything we do, whether it's a digital product or, physical product, anything like that. So please reach out to us, guys. I'm the most active on LinkedIn these days because you guys know that I continuously have Facebook trouble, which once again they've kind of got me in the penalty box for who knows why. But thank you again, guys, and we'll see you the next time on the Seller Roundtable. Take care, guys.
Bye.
All right, recording's done. And on the live stream, guys, if you want to join us live, ask questions, all that fun stuff, sellerroundtable.com/live Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. I feel like I always get the Zoom emails that say like so-and-so's entered your meeting. And I'm like, it's 2 hours too early or it's 1 hour too late. Or so I giggle. So I'm just going to mention that just so next time people can dial that in. But we'll see you guys next time. If you don't know as well, when you come in for the live, we stay after a little bit and answer questions. It's kind of like free coaching that we normally charge for. So make sure that you guys join us live.